friends. My name is Dan Graham. I am the author of ETM, Event and Task Manager. Today I want to begin a new series of tutorials on the basic features of ETM, starting today with tasks. There are two kinds of tasks in ETM, those that are scheduled and those that are unscheduled. In ETM, the @s option is used to set the scheduled date time for a reminder. For a task, the scheduled date time is interpreted as the time by which the task is to be completed. Tasks that have an @s entry are scheduled and appear in agenda view on the date at which the scheduled date time falls. Tasks without an @s entry appear instead in Due Next view under the Location option of the item. Let's begin by considering some examples of scheduled tasks, starting with some very simple and moving on to slightly more complicated. For the first example, let's consider the task of moving trash to the curb for this coming Monday at 8 a.m. So I'll begin by pressing Shift-N to create a new reminder. And this opens the typical dialog in which I'm prompted at the top, and then there's an entry area below to fill in my response. So the first issue is to choose the type of reminder that I'm going to be creating, and it's a task, so I'll put in a minus sign and then make the entry of the summary: move trash to curb. And the @s entry will enter 8 a.m. Monday. And you notice that typical in ETM, it shows in the prompt area how it's interpreted my entry. So it expands Monday to the first Monday falling on or after today, and the 8A to 8 a.m. and the current time zone. So now I'll press Control-S to save this. Nothing appears because it's scheduled for next week, so I'll move the cursor, press the right cursor key to shift to the coming week, and you see there it appears on Monday, May the 1st. So this illustrates the fact that it might be nice to have some advance warning of this task. Since it falls on a Monday, I won't see it in the current week, and it will only appear when the week ticks over to Monday next week, and then it's supposed to be at the curb by 8 a.m., so that's not ideal. So let's select the task, press Shift-E to edit it, and let's enter begin by warning. This calls for an integer number of days, and let's put 7 days. It doesn't really matter. Really, all I need to be notified is on Sunday, so that would be a 1-day advance warning. But let's go ahead and put the 7 in so it will show up on the current day of this week. And press Control-S again to save the changes. And let's move to today. And you can see that I now get this notice with the right greater than symbol pointing toward the future that I have a task coming up, move trash to the curb, that is due in plus 4 days. So that takes care of that issue. Now the question arises of what would this task look like if it were past due? And that's a pretty easy thing to explore. So let's press Shift-R with this item with the task selected to reschedule it. And let's reschedule for 8 a.m. on the 17th of this month, which is last week. and submit that. And you see that instead of being warned that it's due in 5 days, it now tells me that this task is past due, the less than symbol pointing back to the past, past due by 10 days. And if I use the left cursor key to move back a week, you can see that's the instance that's being discussed. It was due on April the 17th due to my revision. And so today it's 10 days past due. Now let's consider a slight complication of this task. Suppose I need to do this not just one time, but every week on Mondays at 8 a.m. So how can I accomplish that? Well, pretty easy. Let's select the task, press Shift-E to edit, and at the end, let me add @R, repeat what frequency? Weekly. Put in a W, and press Control-S to save. Now you can see that a lot of stuff has happened to the display. I have a task that was an instance of this task that was due this past Monday, the 24th. I have another instance that was due the previous Monday, which is now past due by 10 days. And I have an instance coming up that will be due in 4 days. That's the following Monday. So I can go back to 1 week to see one. The one that's due this week is now past due as well. And then the one that's due next week. And in fact, I can go as many weeks as I want and see that it's going to fall on each and every Monday. Back to the current date. I press the space bar as always to get back to the current week. Now, I don't really want to be reminded about putting out the trash when I had to have it out by 8 a.m. on Monday. That's when it's picked up. And if I don't have it out then, I might as well forget it. So all these reminders are irrelevant except for the one that's coming up. So how can I deal with that? Well, let's select, press E to edit, and add yet another option at O for overdue. I want to skip reminders for tasks that are past due for this particular task. Press Control-S to save. And voila, everything, all the past ones have disappeared, those past due notices. And I only have the reminder that in 4 days I need to put the trash out on the curb. Now let me give one more slightly complicated example of a repeating scheduled task. Let's suppose, well, let me just press Shift-N to create a new task. Haircut. Get a haircut. I want this to repeat. I want it to start, let's say, Saturday. Don't care what time. And I want it to repeat daily at intervals of, let's say, 14 days, every 2 weeks. Now, the wrinkle with this task is that, say I have an opportunity and I get a haircut today, then I don't really want this task to repeat 14 days from Saturday. I want it to repeat 14 days from today when I actually got the haircut. And I want that pattern to continue. So every time I complete the task, get the haircut, I want it to restart from that completion date. So it's always going to be reminding me 14 days after I last got the haircut that it's time to get another one. So how do I do that? Well, again, it's the @O entry, but this time I want an R for restart. So let's do that. Press Control-S to save. And you see I've got the haircut scheduled for completion on Saturday. But let's finish it now and see what happens. So when is the next one due? 2 weeks from today, May the 11th. So that's exactly the desired result. So let's turn now to unscheduled tasks, which are organized by location. The idea for this sort of organization is really due to David Allen's Getting Things Done, commonly known as GTD, and quite famously known, I might add. Let's begin with a simple task, getting some milk. So, as always, press Shift-N to create a new reminder. -sign for task, get milk. That's all there is to it. Press Control-S to save. And switch to Do Next View. And you see Get Milk. And you see it's listed under this symbol, squiggle I call it. I forget the real name right now. That is used in ETM when it is expecting to have a field that it's missing. So in this case, the field is location. So let's edit Get Milk and add the location, errands. Again, press Control-S to save. Now you see the squiggle is gone and it's listed under errands. So that's about as simple as a task can get, unscheduled. Now let's turn to a slightly more complicated task. Let's make a doghouse. Again, Shift-N to create a new task, reminder, make doghouse. And the context for this guy is going to be my shop. Notice, by the way, that when I started to enter the context or location, this @errands popped up. That's because we now have an existing context that's been used before errands, and tab completion is available. So I will get the list of whatever context match whatever I've entered so far. So for this, we'll do shop. Now, this task is, as I say, a little more complicated, and the complication I want to introduce in this case is the notion of breaking down a task into components, subtasks, or I call them jobs. So this guy has a variety of components of jobs that are involved, and to enter those, we use @J for each job. Then enter the summary. So what's the first task? Buy materials. Now, this is not going to be done in my shop, of course. So the @shop, the @l shop provides the context for the whole project, but it's possible to overrule it in the individual job components with an &L. And so that's what I'll use now and put in errands. The next job is to cut the pieces. The next job after that is to assemble the pieces. The next job after that is to sand, and then finally paint. So let's press Control-S and see how this guy looks. All right, you see that the buy materials has joined get milk in the errands context. And you will also notice these numbers that have been appended to the make doghouse. This means, the first one means that one job is available. There are a total of 4 jobs that have not been completed, and 0 jobs have been completed. Now, what does it mean to say it's available? It means that there's only one job that doesn't have unfinished prerequisites. The default when creating a task with components like this is to treat the order in which they're entered as the necessary sequence, so that the buying the materials has to be done before you can cut the pieces. The pieces have to be cut before you can do the assembly. The thing has to be assembled before you can sand it, and it has to be sanded before you can paint it. So these guys are all dimmed out, and they have plus signs instead of the minus. And the plus sign is sort of ETM's notation for this is a task that has uncompleted prerequisites and is not yet available to be done. So again, the 1 here means there's one task that's available, and that's the buy materials, and all the rest of them are waiting. Now, let's finish this task just to see how that works. So I'm going to press Shift F to finish. Now as good as any. And notice that task disappeared. It went into completed view because we just finished it. D to go back to do next. And as I indicated, the next task now gets the highlighted presentation with the minus sign, meaning this task is available to be completed. And again, there's one task that's available, this one. Now there are 3 that have not yet been completed, and 1 that has been completed. So you get the sequence for how all this works. Not too complicated, and it's really a valuable thing to be able to break down the big jobs into the little ones. Eat the elephant one bite at a time. Let me wind things up by commenting on simple versus complicated. ETM's goal is to make all the simple things that you would want to do easy, and of course to provide features for all of that. But it's also to provide possible ways of doing all the complicated things that a variety of users will find useful. This simple, easy, and complicated possible, of course, leads to a great myriad of features that are built into ETM, and for that matter, any other modern software program. So what's the philosophy about how to accommodate yourself to all these features? Well, there are many more than you'll ever need to use or want to learn how to use. So my advice is to learn how to do the simple things, the easy things. Remember those. That's going to take care of 90% of what you're interested in. Now for the other 10%, just remember that it's probably possible. And there's a manual online, and there's a link in the discussion below to that manual. And there's also a discussion group that's available. And so you can bore down in the manual, the README as I call it, and see if you can find the answer there. If not, or in addition to that, you can go online and see what's been discussed there and raise the question if you don't find your particular need addressed. It's a very friendly group, and we're always willing and eager to help anybody that's wanting to learn how to use ETM. So that's it for today. Thank you very much.